This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Road to recovery. Community members rally around a Cape Breton singer-songwriter seriously injured in a motorcycle accident.
Caring for the crews, volunteers make those fighting the Long Lake wildfire feel at home.
And shelving the future. These students are on a mission to bring more multilingual books to young Nova Scotians.
Northerly winds will bring a fall-like feel for Friday with a few showers in the northeast. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Support is pouring in for a Cape Breton singer-songwriter who's recovering in hospital after a motorcycle accident.
Elise Aaron's partner, who was riding with her the night of the crash, is speaking about a night he won't soon forget. The CBC's Kyle Moore reports.
Glace Bay's Elise Aaron has been a rising star on the music scene lately. She was named Music Nova Scotia's Entertainer of the Year last year. But her career is now on hold after a motorcycle accident in her hometown.
That night was, don't want to go through that again. That I don't wish that on anybody. That was, probably really haven't thought about that night too much since, and trying to block it out with distractions and chatting with friends and all that kind of good stuff.
Aaron's partner, Garrett Taylor, was riding ahead of her that night when the crash happened on this stretch of road. The motorcycle Aaron was riding collided with another car. She suffered serious injuries and was airlifted to a Halifax hospital where she is currently recovering.
She had surgery on her arm, her leg, and there's multiple facial fractures too.
Elise as a person has climbed into all of our hearts, and as an artist, she's worked so hard.
A GoFundMe has raised almost $80,000 to support Aaron in her recovery. Several fundraising concerts are also planned, including one at her place of work, the Sandbar in Dominion, on September 20th.
It's noon till midnight, and it's Matt Minglewood, and it's Hearts of Kin, and it's Jeff Stapleton, who is a band member, and a whole lineup of artists that have come out. The whole day is going to be music and prizes.
Everyone coming together to support the 36-year-old. Taylor says it's been overwhelming.
Just the best friends, and they're just the best.
Taylor says Aaron is a fighter and doesn't doubt she'll be back on stage in the future. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Glace Bay.
Woods restrictions have been lifted in two more counties, Pictou and Colchester. Provincial officials say the risk of wildfires is now low enough in those counties to allow the lifting of restrictions on travel and activities in the woods. With the change, half the counties in the province will no longer be under the restrictions. Meanwhile, the burn ban still remains in place for the entire province.
The Long Lake wildfire is nearing 1 month. While firefighters have had to be hard at work trying to contain the fire, volunteers in Cornwallis Park, the former CFB Cornwallis, have been busy feeding them and keeping their spirits high. Jane Sponigal has more.
Firefighters back from a 12-hour shift battling wildfires in Nova Scotia's Annapolis County, bleary-eyed and hungry, finally getting to sit down to a hot meal. It's thanks to these folks. Just a few of the 45 volunteers who've been feeding and caring for the nearly 200 firefighters staying at the former naval base.
It's the smiles on their face. To see someone that exhausted. We had two young ladies here last night that couldn't get up from the table. They were so tired.
Cheryl Pistorius has to be tired too. She's been here since day 3 and putting in long hours on top of her day job.
I just want some delight in their life. This is a tough job. I can't imagine doing this day in, day out. In that heat, they're in the bogs, they're soaking wet, they're being sunburned, the ticks, the bugs. But they're going out there and they're doing it every day. It's nothing for me to come down here and help.
The hub of this volunteer operation was once the officers' mess, the dining room lined with letters of support from all ages. The kitchen is buzzing for 17 hours a day, making all meals, including 100 sandwiches for bagged lunches.
I know the morale of the firefighters will be high because of the community support here, Nova Scotia support overall too. So it all helps with the mental health and everything, and hard work. Getting full belly helps.
There's been a rotation of chefs. Bonnie Buckler was the first cook of this operation and is still on hand. Buckler grew up in West Dalhousie and has family members who've had to leave their homes. Being here was the only option for her.
I think that's something Nova Scotians just do. When there's a crisis, they just get in that kitchen and they start cooking. And that's exactly what's happened here. It's amazing.
The Department of Natural Resources has paid for the firefighters' accommodations and food, but it's the volunteers who are trying to make it feel like home. On the menu this night, a Nova Scotia boiled dinner, and for dessert, pie and lots of it. Pistorius has earned the nickname the Pie Pusher. She says some firefighters won't make eye contact with her so she doesn't make them eat more. But she doesn't want anyone to leave hungry.
We want their families to know when they come home, they have a warm bed, a full belly, and they're safe. Because that's all parents want. They just want their children to be safe. So I'm glad I get the opportunity to do that. It's humbling for me. So I feel really blessed that I got that chance to do that, yeah.
Jane Sponigal, CBC News, Cornwallis Park.
And Ryan Snoddon with us now to talk weather.
Yes, a few showers overnight, but not enough.
Not enough is what we've been saying for weeks and weeks and even months, because as we look at this updated map from the Canadian Drought Monitor from Agriculture Canada, these are our conditions as of August 31st. So we've had a couple of sprinkles since then, but this is basically the scene right now as well. And you can see most of the Maritimes at least in a moderate to severe drought with large pockets, including the Annapolis Valley, Cumberland, Colchester, and a pocket out towards Pictou, Antigonish counties, and in the Sydney, Richmond County area in an extreme drought situation. Now, some of these are short-term, which is less than 6 months, but this area through here, especially in and around Cobequid Bay and back towards the valley, this would be a drought extending more than 6 months. So a pretty exceptional situation here. Obviously, we know how desperately we need the rain, and unfortunately, the high-pressure area continues. A few showers into the 7-day, Tom and Amy, but that sunshine train rolls on. We'll have your full 7-day coming up.
All right, for sure. Ryan, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Nova Scotia Power is facing a $1 million penalty after failing to meet performance standards. 2024 was the 8th consecutive year the utility failed to meet one or more of its performance targets. In a letter, the Nova Scotia Energy Board outlines customers should not be without power for more than 4 hours and 17 minutes through the year. But the average for last year was 5 hours and 16 minutes. In a statement, Nova Scotia Power says the utility is committed to continuing to improve service for our customers. The $1 million penalty must be credited back to customers.
Nova Scotia Health says work to validate the province's Need a Family Practice Registry should be completed this fall. But they're still trying to reach thousands of people to determine their primary care needs. The Health Authority has reduced the information released to the public about the list each month to just the overall number. But officials still have access to much more data.
We continue to use that information about change in demand, change in population size, change in providers available. All of that information we're taking into account when we're doing our planning. So we do have that information, but we have additional context and opportunity to validate and work with that information that wouldn't be available to the public. And it's important for us to not yet report it while we're continuing to work through the validation period.
McCormick says a recommendation for how to report the information in the future will be made to the health minister. As of this month, about 84,000 people were on the Need a Family Practice Registry.
Researchers in Nova Scotia are working to develop berry varieties that can withstand climate change. Modeling suggests the province will see wetter and hotter conditions. Scientists are preparing now. The CBC's Frances Willick reports.
In a greenhouse at the Kentville Research and Development Centre, Beatrice Amiot is surrounded by strawberry plants. To most people, they probably look similar, but a closer look shows there's lots of variety, 160 varieties to be exact. There are tall and short plants, large and small leaves, and different hues of green. Amiot is part of a team across Canada searching for varieties that can cope with our changing climate.
Something that can withstand a drier year, a colder year, a wetter year, and still have good productivity under all those conditions is more likely to be resilient to climate change.
Amiot and researchers in other parts of Canada will plant some of these strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries and then share data on how they fare. Growing conditions will be a key part of that data, how well they thrive in drought, heat, excessive rain, or whatever else nature throws their way.
So, for example, drought is what we've encountered here in Nova Scotia. Other parts of Canada have experienced heat dome conditions and winter freeze snaps that have been really detrimental to berry crops. So those extreme conditions are something that some species and some varieties within species are more tolerant to than others.
Philip Keddy knows that unpredictability all too well. At his farm in Lakeville, he produces strawberry plants to sell to growers in the U.S. and Canada.
I believe we've been, for the last 10 years, starting to see the effects of climate change. We've had some of the wettest years, some of the driest years, colder temperatures in the winter, just drastic fluctuation in temperatures and moisture.
Keddy works with the Kentville Research Centre to field test their varieties. It's up to him to find the right ones to send to his customers. And what works for one customer in Florida may not work for another in Saskatchewan with its harsh winters. Back at the research station, the final product, the berries, are also put under a microscope to evaluate properties like color, gloss, and firmness. But the process of developing the perfect varieties and the perfect berries isn't fast. Amiot says it can take 10 to 15 years to bring a new strawberry variety to the commercial market, and even more for other berries. Frances Willick, CBC News, Kentville.
The provincial government has announced funding for 2 projects aimed at protecting Nova Scotia's hemlock trees from an invasive species. The town of Bridgewater will be getting more than $250,000 to treat an infestation of hemlock woolly adelgid in the community's parks and trails. Another $350,000 will go to a new biocontrol facility at Acadia University. Researchers there are working to mass-produce natural predators, which is considered one of the best long-term solutions to control the spread of the invasive species.
If you are traveling by ferry tomorrow or Saturday, you may want to make a reservation. Northumberland Ferries says because of low tides, the ferries between PEI and Nova Scotia will operate with reduced capacity on some sailings. Students in Halifax are on a mission to bring more French and other multilingual books to youth here in Nova Scotia.
3 ambitious students are behind the youth-led project. They're called Shelving the Future. The CBC's Molly McNaughton reports.
L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux, répéta le petit prince.
Miriam El-Sankari said she noticed her French degrading when she came to Halifax Grammar School in grade 7. The books here weren't the same level she was used to at her previous French immersion school, where she studied from grade 1 to grade 6.
Like the type of books that you find, they're not really like the same level as, for example, when you go to a French school.
That's how the idea for the newly formed Shelving the Future came to be. It's a group of 3 grade 11 students at Halifax Grammar with an ambition to make multilingual books more accessible to youth by partnering with local organizations and schools. Through donations and book drives, they hope to support literacy education in underserved communities.
We obviously want to focus on French books because of the strong Acadian heritage we have here in Nova Scotia. But we also wanted to bring other types of literature such as Mi'kmaq books, maybe Chinese, Arabic, because we obviously have a lot of immigration here and we have a lot of diversity, so we wanted to promote that as well.
Out of more than 1,000 applicants, Shelving the Future was one of the groups to receive roughly $3,500 through the International Baccalaureate Youth Fund. It provides funding for students who want to make a difference in their community through innovative ideas.
When this opportunity came up for them, they jumped on it and really ran with it themselves.
Shelving the Future's first donation of books went to the IWK this month. Right now, their plan is to use their funds to buy as many books as possible. The group hopes to encourage younger grades to get involved and keep the initiative growing once they begin their new chapter after Halifax Grammar. Molly McNaughton, CBC News, Halifax.
There's a peek at George's Island.
They're leaving without us, Amy.
I know. Wait up. Ryan's up next with his full forecast.
This weather update is brought to you by Access Wellness Nova Scotia. Book your appointment today for free, confidential mental wellness support.
Well, we've been saying for a while that it has been dry, and as Ryan points out, the numbers certainly back that up.
It doesn't look like there's a lot of change in our future either.
No, that's the unfortunate part, really. There's just no change. We're locked into this pattern, and, you know, pretty stark to see when you see that map from the Canadian drought map updated from the Agriculture of Canada, to see such a huge swath of the Maritimes in an exceptional drought. Obviously, that is... we're in rare territory here, and it's going to be a while to dig ourselves out of this hole, even once the pattern does change. Have a look at a beautiful shot here. The sky's starting to clear across Cape Breton. This is Iona, Highland Village.
Nice night in Iona.
Sure
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. As the skies start to clear just over the last few minutes. And I'll show you the satellite picture in just a second. Have a look first at the current temperatures. And you can see it's been a little cool today with those showers in Cape Breton, 16 to 18 degrees right now. Note the temperatures have really warmed up over the west. Thanks to those clearing skies with the satellite picture, you can see where we have cleared over the west. And Cape Breton now, over the last few frames there, you can see the back edge of that cloud cover starting to push its way into Cape Breton and across Iona, so we are going to start to see that clearing trend here. A little trough, a little wave here that's going to be pushing its way through with another potential isolated shower, but most of the shower activity is now pulling away and out to Newfoundland with this frontal boundary, which, by the way, dropped 2 to 5 millimeters on average along the Atlantic coastline last night. A couple of pockets that did get up to 10 millimeters. The northern areas of the province, including the Valley, Colchester, Cumberland, where we need it most, into the North Shore, a couple of drops, unfortunately. As that has been the trend, right? Systems passing to the south. Big ridge of high pressure moving in here next, and a couple of lows that we're going to be watching further to the west. You can see temperatures here continue to be quite warm for this time of year. In through the Great Lakes, we're looking at temperatures into the high teens, low 20s, and that's where we're standing right now. 8 degrees, by the way, in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and the high today in Labrador City, just 8 degrees. So a little sign of fall pushing down into Labrador. Have a look at temperatures for tonight. We're going to be right near that double-digit mark, right around 10 degrees for overnight lows for the most part, give or take a couple of degrees. Those showers in through the northeast, clearing away for the most part, and there's that little front that pushes through after. By the time we get to Friday, we're looking at quiet conditions to start the day and quite a bit of sunshine overall. It'll be a sunny start for Cape Breton and the North Shore. Then you folks will see the clouds building back in, becoming a mix of sun and cloud. Best chance for showers is going to be for Inverness and along that North Shore for tomorrow. A couple of isolated showers. I think it's less than 30% risk here, but a pretty solid chance that we'll see a few showers in through Inverness County into the afternoon. And that slight risk will continue in through the evening, even across the North Shore for tomorrow. Tons of sunshine elsewhere. 16 to 19 degrees across Cape Breton tomorrow. The winds from the northwest sustain 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, strongest for Inverness County, and some gusts in the 40 to 50 range for Inverness and Victoria counties, gusts to 40 for the rest of Cape Breton. And we are looking at some gusts in the 40 to 50 range, likely back towards Antigonish as well. And then as we move our way further to the west, we're going to be talking about winds 20 gusting to 30 to 40 in the morning, easing into the afternoon. Those winds will become lighter, just 16 to 18 degrees for the North Shore. And yeah, may not crack 20 in the metro area. Going to be awfully close. We'll be watching that. It'll be a first time in a long time. As we look at the temperatures in the west, teens in through the Annapolis Valley, and we're into the low 20s for the South Shore. Now, looking ahead, high pressure continues to dominate there Saturday. Solid mix of sun and cloud, but we're dry. We're looking at temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Pretty much on par for where we should be this time of year. Pretty nice day overall. And then note this little front here, this little trough. Some models throwing it over Cape Breton. Most have it just to the east of Cape Breton. So I think we're going to stay dry in regard to that, but we will be watching this front here moving out of New Brunswick. That will bring a shower Sunday night. At least the possibility of some showers Sunday night, and then gone again by Monday. Back into the sunshine Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week with another chance for showers on Thursday. Tom and Amy, we will keep you posted.
All right, we'll be following.
Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, a PEI business is taking fleece that used to be thrown out and turning it into an environmentally friendly supplement to be used by gardeners.
Sheep owners say they appreciate a bit of extra income. The CBC's Nancy Russell has the story.
A PEI business owner has found a new purpose for wool that used to go to waste. She's compressing it into wool pellets that will be used by gardeners to improve their soil and help their plants grow.
They are magic. You take it and you shred it and compress it into tiny little pellets about the size of cat kibble, and you use it in place of chemical fertilizers. So it's an organic fertilizer. It aerates your soil. It reduces your need to water by about 25%.
The path to making the pellets has had some challenges. There's only one company in North America that makes this equipment, and when it arrived here last spring, there was a part missing.
I had hoped to be up and operational in the fall and have a lot of pellets available for the spring. That didn't happen. There was a piece of equipment missing after the shipment came from the States. It felt like 2 steps forward, 1 step back half the time, but finally it was ready to roll this spring.
McEachran's business is called Knit Pickers, selling wool and all things knitting, which meant she knew a lot of sheep farmers, part of what inspired the new product.
So they're getting paid a fair amount for waste wool, which doesn't need to be skirted, it doesn't need to be washed. If there's a little bit of manure in it, I mean, who cares, right? It's going in the garden.
Some of the wool from these sheep will be made into pellets this fall. Most of it usually goes to 2 mills here on PEI, but now there is a new market.
I was super excited. Every dollar counts in the sheep industry. And so to turn something that was a waste product into another revenue stream for us, we're quite pleased about this.
McEachran says it has taken some time to get the word out, but interest exploded when PEI-based Vessey's Seeds started selling the pellets. Now they're going to be featured in the company's catalog.
I'm roping my sister into helping, and so between Thanksgiving and November 15th, we'll be working flat out making pellets. I currently have about 4,000 pounds of waste wool in the sheds. A lot of wool to process, but we'll get there.
McEachran is looking forward to a busy fall of making wool pellets and a full season of selling them ahead. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Mayfield.
Coming up, remembering the tragedy of the September the 11th terror attacks and the role the Halifax airport played in supporting stranded passengers.
It's been 24 years since the September 11th terror attacks on the United States. More than 7,000 passengers were diverted to Halifax when planes were forced to land when the airspace closed. Joyce Carter is president and CEO of the Halifax Stanfield Airport. So you were working as a vice president at the airport that day 24 years ago. How did the day start off for you?
I was. So yes, I was working that day. And certainly, Amy, the day started off like any other day. It was actually unlike today in that it was a beautiful, clear day. And I was actually in to work early that morning because I had planned to meet with my team on our 2002 plan. And so we had a staff meeting that we were in when all of the events began to unfold for the day. So it started off as a normal day, unlike any other day.
And when did you realize that the airport was about to get a whole lot busier?
So it was probably close to 9:30 in the morning, and I had been in this meeting that I referenced. I had a knock at the door, and our then director of communications was at the other side of the door. It's very unusual for someone to interrupt a meeting and knock at the door. So we were like, oh, okay, who's at the door? And it was her. And as soon as I saw her face, I realized that something was not right. And so, as obviously I stepped out of the meeting and she told me, at least at that time, about the first aircraft that had hit the World Trade Center, that certainly it was going to be a day. And we were going to get some aircraft diverted as a result of that. It was going to be a day unlike what we had planned. In that moment, of course, little did I know how different that day and obviously the days that followed and the many months and really years that followed would be different as a result of that incident.
Well, what was it like when the planes started arriving?
So initially, as you can imagine, it was a bit chaotic. We have what we call an emergency operations center. And so that center was activated, and it's only activated for different levels of emergencies. So for sure, this would have been one that would cause the activation of the center. And it became very evident very quickly in what we call the EOC that we weren't just, at first we heard we were just going to get a few diversions. That obviously, I think it was within 15 to 20 minutes that the second tower had been hit. And that we were going to be getting many more diversions. It became very obvious very quick that we were asked to handle at the time what we could park. And so when you think about the size of our airport, we had a duty manager at the time who very quickly figured out how he's going to be able to park these aircraft, these wide body aircraft, and they were all going to be wide bodies because they were coming from overseas. We quickly planned for how we were going to do that and what the maximum aircraft was that we could take. And instructions were to keep them away from the terminal building because it was very unsure what exactly was happening and whether those aircraft were actually a threat at the time. So we had to close one of our runways and they were parked on one of our two runways. We have two, so closed one, obviously to allow the other to be open for more aircraft to land. And we just literally started to park them on the airfield.
So a scary time.
Very scary time. Yeah.
What was the atmosphere among the passengers as they got off the planes? I can imagine they didn't have a whole lot of information and probably pretty confused.
They were very confused. And so one of the first things, once we had all of the aircraft parked and by 11 o'clock we had all the aircraft we were going to receive, is then put in place a plan to get these passengers off the aircraft and get them cleared by customs. So they were all flights that required customs clearance. And meeting those passengers that were getting off of those aircraft and the flight crews actually was like something I'll never forget, because this was a day and a time when you didn't have social media. We basically had terminal TVs in our terminal building. And so we didn't want them, obviously, to see some of the first images as they came off of the plane on those TVs. I remember having them turned off and just being there, setting up our response with not only the workers at Halifax Stanfield, but the community that responded was incredible. And being there to answer their questions. And their reaction to your question, Amy, was shock, was disbelief, was concern for their colleagues and their family members. Everybody wanted to find out, exactly what had happened and who they knew or didn't know that may have been impacted or involved. And so it was just an incredible effort by our community to get them phones, to get them, responses, to get them cleared in customs, and to, obviously, as we realized, they're not just going to be here for a few hours, get them to a place where they could rest.
And how would you describe the community response, finding food, shelter for so many unexpected guests?
Exactly. So roughly 7,000 people in our community that we didn't know were coming. Think about that in your own home when you have guests that are unexpected. So the community response was incredible. The best really of Halifax came out in the worst of what was the worst of times. And so everything from people phoning our front desk to offer their home, to pharmacists showing up on site to say there may be people who need medication because we couldn't take their bags out of the hold of the aircraft. Those had to remain on board. To veterinaries coming because we had live animals and pets being transported. The community showed up like I have never seen to be able to help us process the 7,000 people who were here and needed to have some basic essentials and some basic information.
Yeah, a massive effort for sure. Joyce Carter, thank you very much for your time today. We do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Amy.
Coming up, a nationwide manhunt is underway in the U.S. following the fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
And boosting Canada's economy, Prime Minister Mark Carney unveils a list of major infrastructure projects. Welcome back. Prime Minister Mark Carney has unveiled 5 what he's calling nation-building projects to boost the Canadian economy in the face of a U.S. trade war.
The Liberals say it will generate $60 billion and create tens of thousands of high-paying jobs. The CBC's Rafi Buchikanyan reports.
With no end in sight to the trade war with the U.S., Prime Minister Mark Carney is betting big on convincing Canadians there are other ways of boosting the economy.
We used to build big things in this country, and we used to build them quickly. It's time to get back at it.
Ottawa is asking its newly formed Major Projects Office to look at the following projects: expanding LNG Canada's terminal in Kitimat, BC to double its production of liquefied natural gas, building a small modular reactor an hour east of Toronto, a first it says for a G7 country, and expansions of mines in Saskatchewan and BC, along with an expansion of the Port of Montreal. The Prime Minister expects these facilities alone to generate more than $60 billion in revenue.
The support is there with Indigenous partners. Much of the other work has been done. There's a few things to be done to shepherd across the line.
But along with these first 5 projects is another list of those that need more work and have not been sent to the office yet, and ones that are currently on no list at all, like an oil pipeline, a major ask of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who still had kinder words than she has for a federal Liberal government in a long time.
I can tell you that when I looked at the first 5 projects, I thought finally they get it, because it's all the projects that have been difficult to build. It's mining projects, it's LNG Canada, and I think that that demonstrates a real shift in the focus of this government.
From Nova Scotia, also nothing but praise. One of the future development cases is a wind power project off its coast.
What happened today is the federal government said, this is a project that is worthy, and we are supportive, and we will help work with you to make sure that that path to market is open.
But it's not all rave reviews for Carney.
He's not permitted a single major mine, pipeline, nuclear plant, or anything else. What he's done today is announce that he's going to send an email to an office that isn't even fully staffed up yet.
Criticisms that Carney will have to deal with head-on next week when he and Pierre Poilievre face off in Parliament after MPs return to Ottawa for the fall. Rafi Buchikanyan, CBC News, Edmonton.
FBI investigators have released 2 photos of a person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. The U.S. conservative activist was shot dead while speaking at a university in Utah Wednesday. Steve Futterman has the latest from Utah.
Early today, the FBI released these 2 images. The young man dressed mostly in black, wearing a black cap and sunglasses. The goal in releasing them? The hope that someone might know the person and contact police. At their morning news briefing, a major break in the case. Investigators announced they had recovered what they believe is the weapon used in the killing of Charlie Kirk.
It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. The FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon.
And authorities say they were actually able to trace the suspect's movements before the shooting and afterwards.
We are confident in our abilities to track that individual. If we're unsuccessful in identifying them immediately, we will reach out for the public's help and the media's help in pushing those photos.
The shock still hasn't worn off here. A small memorial has been set up. People showed up today bringing flowers. Charlie Kirk is being viewed today by both sides of the political aisle as a talented and charismatic political organizer. But after that, there are some key differences. Conservatives view Charlie Kirk as a champion of liberty. And while most Democrats, including former Presidents Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton, along with California Governor Gavin Newsom, have strongly criticized his death, many Democrats say that at times, Charlie Kirk was a divisive figure. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Orem, Utah.
NATO members are on high alert following a Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace. Polish and NATO forces shot down some Russian drones on Wednesday, while others fell to the ground in eastern Poland. The UN Security Council will convene to discuss the issue on Friday. Chris Brown reports.
So far, NATO's response to the Russian drone incursion into Poland has been almost exclusively with words, invoking Article 4, consulting, talking, condemning, and investigating precisely what happened. Donald Tusk, the Polish Prime Minister, visited some of the fighter pilots who shot down those drones and promised them, "You will not be alone as you protect Europe. We'll ensure our allies fulfill their commitments." But how exactly should NATO do that? Because the drones are just the latest Russian provocation, which has also included things such as jamming the GPS signals of commercial aircraft and committing sabotage in multiple European countries. Some analysts want to see a strengthening of frontline aircraft and air defenses. Italy's foreign minister called for more economic sanctions.
We stand in full solidarity with Polish people after the unacceptable violation of their airspace. We are and will remain fully engaged with Ukraine. The coalition of the willing has clearly reaffirmed our common goal and commitment to achieve a just and lasting peace in Ukraine and provide strong security guarantees to help preventing future attacks.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says NATO and Ukraine should commit to work together to shoot down all Russian drones, no matter what country they fly over, something NATO has thus far opposed. The concern, though, is that Russia is going to keep pushing, keep probing, keep looking for weakness if there is not a response. All of this is happening on the eve of Zapad, Russia's major war games. In previous years, those games involved up to 200,000 troops doing drills in very strategically sensitive areas, including the Slovakia Gap, which is a bit of Poland between Belarus and Kaliningrad, and it's long been seen as a potential flashpoint for a future conflict between NATO and Russia. And so this event has always been watched carefully, because prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there were also military exercises that ended up being a preamble for that attack. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Qatar is planning an emergency Arab Islamic summit starting Sunday. It comes after an Israeli airstrike hit its capital, Doha, killing several Hamas members on Tuesday. Qatari officials warn that the attack by Israel could derail negotiations for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release. Sasha Petrusik reports from Jerusalem.
Qatar and the Arab part of the Middle East is continuing to respond to Israel's airstrikes in Doha earlier this week. They've announced an Arab Islamic emergency summit to be held in Doha on Sunday and Monday. Many of those countries, including financially the strongest ones in the Arab world, have come out and backed Qatar, criticized Israel and its actions as being criminal, cowardly, and the product of state terrorism. So we will be seeing representatives from Saudi Arabia, from the UAE, and others who will be showing up, if nothing else, to show their solidarity against Israel. Now, there has also been some blowback from the United States on this issue. We're hearing from Axios in Washington that there was a tense call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after these strikes, where Trump demanded that Netanyahu promise that this will not happen again, that Israel will not strike Qatar anytime in the future. That's not quite clear, though, from what we are hearing from Netanyahu.
And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
It's been like in a very systematic way, trying to undermine any chance of stability, any chance of peace, and any chance of retrieving his own hostages. And these attempts, like we witnessed them in many occasions throughout the negotiations.
Mediators like Qatar and Egypt and many others, even here in Israel, have criticized Netanyahu. Nonetheless, Qatar is saying that it will continue its role as mediator, and that probably means that there will be Hamas officials still in Doha and perhaps risk another Israeli strike there. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Some people living near St. John's, Newfoundland have unsafe water flowing through their taps. And they only found out because a local chemistry professor started asking questions. The CBC's Jayla Bernstein investigated and discovered contamination may be spreading beyond what the government has caught.
When chemist Carl Jobst started testing for toxic chemicals, he had no idea how far the trail would lead him.
And this is essentially industrial wastewater that's being discharged from the airport.
Just on the other side of this fence line here is the St. John's International Airport, and about 1 kilometer from here is where there's a site, a former fire training area, contaminated by forever chemicals, and the culprit there is firefighting foam. Transport Canada is responsible for the site. Last year, it warned people here that forever chemicals, or PFAS, had spread to some wells in this subdivision of Torbay. By doing his own further tests, Jobst has now found contamination in a different area, over 3 kilometers away in a wetland called the Gully.
Oh my goodness.
Jobst tested this family's tap water. It was within Canada's guidelines, but above stricter maximums set by the United States. They bought a filter, worried about the health effects.
Nobody, government-wise, has really been doing anything. It's been a really closed-mouth type of situation, like we've had to look into it ourselves.
Jobst found contamination at half of the 15 homes he tested near the Gully. 4 were above Canadian limits and 4 above lower American limits. CBC Investigates had independent testing done at some of the sites, and the results were consistent with his findings. What's more, documents show that over a decade ago, Transport Canada knew contamination was spreading downstream. The local mayor is asking Ottawa to expand testing and provide bottled water. Do you think it's acceptable that Transport Canada hasn't tested anyone's drinking water on this road to date?
Well, I can't speak for Transport Canada, as I never would, but I would think that when we advise them that there's PFAS showing up in someone's drinking water, that they would act on that.
Transport Canada said it takes its responsibilities with respect to PFAS seriously. It won't comment further because of a proposed lawsuit on behalf of residents. No one knows for sure how far the contamination spreads.
There are solutions, there's ways to filter this from people's water, but they can't do that if they don't know they have it.
Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Torbay, Newfoundland.
Strength in industrial stocks helped Canada's main stock index reach new ground following a string of record highs, while U.S. markets also broke records. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break.
This weather update is brought to you by Access Wellness Nova Scotia. Book your appointment today for free, confidential mental wellness support.
Well, with the viewer photos, Ryan, you have been on a real roll. I mean, there has been a plethora of beautiful sunset shots to choose from.
It is the time of year that you really get to catch them, right?
Yeah, and just with the clouds lately, they've just been kind of perfect. We've been right on the edge of these systems, which, of course, watching the rain pass close. But given that, we've been kind of on the edge, the sunsets have been really nice. Have a look at this picture. This one will actually comes from beautiful area, just in the Evangeline Beach area, minus Basin, and look at this. There it is.
Isn't that gorgeous?
That makes a cut, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Edie Lloyd, thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah, beautiful sunset
Is that
indeed.
the moon too in the corner? Looks like
I
it.
think it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. And as we look at the forecast for tomorrow, it is going to be a bit cool in those onshore northerly winds. The winds will be persistent in the morning, 20 gusting 30 to 40, and then they will back off as we move into the afternoon, especially for the west and into central areas, remaining pretty gusty even into the evening for Cape Breton and eastern areas. So just a heads up on that. That's where the winds will be strongest tomorrow, gusting 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. So that area of high pressure working its way in, reinforcing that northerly flow. There are those few shower possibilities for Cape Breton, Inverness County in particular, Antigonish County could see a sprinkle tomorrow as well. And you can see that model also showing the chance for the North Shore into tomorrow evening. But I think those are going to be pretty isolated if they do occur. Now for Saturday, we're looking at a mix of sun and cloud as we're under this ridge of high pressure. And then we'll be watching that next front approaching Sunday into New Brunswick. Looks like Sunday night for Nova Scotia with the potential for a few showers. Then our next best chance will be Thursday. Tom and Amy.
Okay, thanks for that, Ryan. Scientists say NASA's Perseverance rover has found what could be the strongest sign yet of possible ancient life on Mars.
A year ago, we thought we found what we believe to be signs of microbial life on the Mars surface. And so this very well could be the clearest sign of life that we've ever found on Mars, which is incredibly exciting.
Well, the data is from samples taken by the Mars rover last year. Detailed studies suggest these leopard spot patterns are similar to what earthly microbes create.
On our planet, these chemical reactions are often a byproduct after they consume organic matter. But NASA cautions that more analysis is needed before they can really reach any conclusion.
The space agency's ambitious and costly plan to bring samples from Mars to Earth is currently on hold.
Yeah, a long way out there to say the least.
Yeah.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.